Welcome to the Bogosity Podcast for the 5th of September 2011, the podcast that replaces your golf balls with raw eggs. This is your host, Shane Killian. First, a brief correction. Last week we said the biggest bogon emitter Warren Buffett was nominated by Fletch for Freedom. In fact, Fletch for Freedom seconded the nomination of Dave Turcotte. We apologize for the error. We have just passed the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. This should be a good time to go back and reflect on that great tragedy, what it means, and where we should go from here. Unfortunately, so many people are using it as a platform for their opinion on separation of church and state, on both sides. The real lessons of 9/11 once more go unlearned. The lessons of 9/11 go to the unintended consequences of our foreign policy, as every intelligence expert has concluded, but politicians continue to ignore and deny. Now let's stuff loads of toilet paper down the news of the bogus. An archivist at the State Department has uncovered documents from the 1950s showing that, get this, the feds believed in the Yeti, that's the abominable snowman, and actually passed regulations about its capture. I would accuse them of watching too much Doctor Who, except that Doctor Who wasn't on the air yet. That plus the fact that there's no such thing as too much Doctor Who. The espionage case continues against WikiLeaks, which has been under attack recently for actually acting like a free press. Despite all the political rhetoric about how we need the government to step in when there's a disaster, otherwise who's going to help these people, FEMA faces enormous funding issues, and when it does respond, it generally responds so late that they aren't much help at all. Oftentimes they get in the way of actual help that is coming from private sources. But many companies, including the big box retailers like Walmart and Home Depot, are already ready already. They have hundreds of trucks filled with supplies such as plywood and non-perishable food deployed in areas at risk of hurricane damage, and have been since over a week before Irene hit. Home Depot even has a hurricane command center where associates look at meteorological predictions and determine ahead of time where these supplies are most likely to be needed. And now it's time to hold back the dry heaves from this week's biggest bogon emitter. Creation Today is a weekly broadcast from Creation Science Evangelism hosted by Eric Hovind, son of convicted fraudster Kent Hovind, which goes just about how you'd think. Young Earth creationists misuse science and lie about scientists to try and support their bogosity. But recently they stepped up their bogon emissions to radioactive levels when they had the audacity to accuse Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller of, well, just hear it for yourself.
Now, there's a fellow who actually, Christians and churches ask permission to post his video in their churches. And he's telling people that there is no God.
Now it's time to protect our precious recipients from this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
Texas Governor Rick Perry is someone who could have won this requital many times in the past, including last April when he declared a 3-day statewide period of prayer for rain before one of the largest droughts in the state's history. But after not only being governor of Texas, but seeking the Republican Party's nomination for president, it's pretty sad when you come out and say something like this.